Good morning, dear students. I hope you have understood whatever we discussed yesterday, all the topics that we have discussed yesterday as part of holding company accounts. We had a general introduction to the topic of holding company. Yeah, we discussed about minority interest to some extent. We've seen some of the accounting treatments that we do as part of holding company accounts. We came across some terms like capital profit and revenue profit, how it is being allocated to holding company and minority shareholders, and all that. And as I've told you yesterday, that today we are going to deal with cost of control, which is otherwise called as goodwill or capital reserve. I hope you remember whatever I told you yesterday about cost of control or goodwill. We had a minimal discussion about it yesterday. So cost of control, I think we can elaborate a bit on that. Cost of control. Cost of control refers to the cost incurred in acquiring control. The cost incurred in acquiring control. We've been talking about the controlling interest whenever we started our discussion on holding company. So what is all about the controlling interest? We said some company or some shareholders are gaining access to a company which is the subsidiary company. If it is a wholly owned subsidiary, holding company has got access or holding company has got controlling interest upon the subsidiary company. And if it is a partly owned subsidiary, as we've said, along with the holding company, some minority shareholders as well gets a controlling interest. So, that's all about the controlling interest. So, naturally, to get the controlling interest, they have to pay something. They have to incur a cost on acquiring the controlling interest, or simply referred to as the cost of acquisition. So, here I hope you remember we said cost of control or goodwill and also capital reserve is associated with holding company and not minority shareholders. So what is the cost incurred by holding company in acquiring shares in subsidiary company? That is what is we are going to find out when we talk about holding company's capital reserve or goodwill. Okay, so as I have asked you to recollect our discussion on amalgamation, we said whenever a company pays something, here in the case of holding company, whenever a company that is holding company pays something to acquire the controlling interest or to acquire the shares in subsidiary company, that will be depicted as an asset on the asset side of holding company. I hope you remember we said yesterday that it will be shown as investment in holding company's balance sheet on the asset side. So that investment represents the number of shares held by holding company in the subsidiary company and the price paid for it. Okay, as you know, we won't be showing the number of shares in the amount column. We will naturally be showing the amount paid as investment, or the amount paid for investment in the subsidiary company. So that can be considered as the investment cost or the cost of investment. So that cost has to be compared with something else so that we get either capital reserve or cost of control. Okay, so what should we compare the cost of investment with so that we get answer? Please think about it. Naturally, we have to compare the cost of investment with the equity acquired in the subsidiary company, either by way of equity share capital or the net assets acquired in the subsidiary company. The net assets acquired. So how do we get the net assets? Simple. We have to deduct the liabilities from the assets, or in other words, we can compute from the liability side, that is share capital plus share in reserves. So we will be talking about it in detail in today's class, but the image is not very clear, I think. I know it is not clear because the textbook was really an old textbook. So what I want you to do is, please write down, it's a small illustration over here, you can find a small illustration. So please write down the points just as a rough note, you can make it fair later. So it is a consolidated balance sheet. You have to write two amount columns, both on the right side and left side, that is both on the asset side and liability side. I hope somewhere nearby you have a pen and a notebook. If not, please grab one very soon. We can't prolong it further. Please take a notebook and pen and write down whatever I say. Okay, please make it fast. So on the liability side, we have share capital. For easiness, it is considered as just shares of rupees 1 each. So you have two amount columns, both on the asset side and on the liability side. First column is H, and second column is S, holding company, subsidiary company. On the asset side as well, first column is H and second column is S. And the first item is share capital. 12,000 on the first column, 6,000 on the second column. 12,000, 6,000, that is displayed over here. I don't know whether it is visible. I think it is slightly visible. If it is visible, please look here. 12,000, sorry. So the first column, share capital, 12,000, 6,000. You just note down the amounts now because the rest of it you can understand. So 12,000, 6,000. The second reserves, the amount is 3,000, 2,000. Third, profit and loss account. I think the item is visible. Profit and loss account, the amount is 2,000, 1,000. And lastly, sundry liabilities, the amount is 10,500, 3,000. I will repeat once more. First item, share capital, the amount is 12,000, 6,000. 12,000, 6,000. Second, reserve, the amount is 3,000, 2,000. Third, P&L account, the amount is 2,000, 1,000. And lastly, liabilities, amount is 10,500, 3,000. Coming to asset side over here, you have only two items. First item is sundry assets. Sundry assets, the amount is 20,000, 12,000. It's slightly visible. 20,000, 12,000. Okay. And second item represents, naturally, we can't omit investment because it's all about holding company. So the second item is investment. Below that, it's not visible, I think. 6,000 shares in S Limited. 6,000 shares in S Limited. And H Limited's column, you have to write amount as 7,500. Okay, so 20,000, 12,000, 7,500. The total of it you can later take, or if you want, it is 27,500 in the first column, 27,500 in the first column, 12,000 in the second column. 27,500 and 12,000. Okay, this is the problem that we are going to discuss today because we want to calculate the cost of control or capital reserve. So it's a very small problem so that you get familiarized with the concept. Okay, so this is clearly visible. So let's have a look. So the last sentence in the problem says H Limited has acquired shares on 31st March 1977, and I just want to tell you the balance sheet was also on 31st March 1977. So the balance sheet date was 31st March 1977, and the acquisition also happened on 31st March 1977 itself. So what did we say yesterday? Whatever profit earned before the date of acquisition represents capital profit and not revenue profit. So that means here we have two items which can be considered as profits. In the first slide we said we have two items, if you could notice, reserve and P&L account. So that means both this reserve and P&L account, it represents capital profit and not revenue profit. So coming back to the problem, look this portion, this is where we have done the calculation. Okay, and there are naturally two methods for it. But normally we will be following the second method. But for the time being, let's just have a look at both the methods. How do we compute capital reserve or goodwill? So method 1 or the first method starts with net assets. So just imagine, what did we say yesterday? If there are two things to notice. One is, in the first method, there are two things to notice. One is net assets acquired by the holding company in the subsidiary company, and second is the cost of investment that was made by the holding company or that was paid by the holding company to the subsidiary company. So the net assets acquired in S Limited, that is gross assets minus liabilities. Naturally, the net assets refers to assets minus liability. It is given as 9,000. It is given as 9,000. Just have a look at the problem or the amounts that you have written down. You had written down assets of subsidiary company. Look at the assets and liabilities of subsidiary company only, okay? Because we are trying to figure out what was the net assets acquired by the holding company in the subsidiary company. So the amounts that we will be focusing here should be that of subsidiary company and not holding company, okay? So subsidiary company's asset side says sundry assets as 12,000. Okay, so just write down somewhere in your paper or notebook, sundry assets 12,000 minus sundry liabilities. On the liability side, you might have written down sundry liabilities of subsidiary company as 3,000. Okay, so sundry assets 12,000 minus sundry liabilities 3,000, you get 9,000 as the gross assets. Okay, not gross assets minus liabilities, that is net assets, you will get as 9,000. So what do we have to compare this with? We have to compare it with the price paid for investment. Where do you get the price paid for investment as 7,500? Where do you get it? We will get it from the balance sheet. On the asset side, look at age limiteds column. Look at age limiteds column. Here, age limiteds column, you might have written down the amount of investment as 7,500. Okay, so that is exactly this 7,500. So you can very well notice that the net assets 9,000 is more than the cost paid for, or the cost of investment, or the amount paid for investment, that is 7,500. So we get the result or the difference as 1,500. What does it represent? Here, the price paid for investment is less than the net assets acquired. So that means this amount of 1,500 is capital reserve and not goodwill. Okay, I hope you got it. Now moving on to the second method. The second method, we start with equity, or we are focusing, just like we said in the first method, we focus on cost of investment and net assets. Here, in the second method, we will be focusing on equity acquired and cost of investment. Equity acquired and cost of investment. The equity acquired is really simple. We have to first get the share capital. What is this share capital? Share capital acquired by holding company in the subsidiary company. Where do we get it from? We get it from the asset side of holding company, wherein you had written down holding company's investment is 6,000 shares in subsidiary company. Always remember, though the amount written on the asset side of the holding company is 7,500, that denotes the cost of investment and not the equity acquired. So the equity acquired is 6,000 because it was 6,000 shares of ₹1 each, so it is 6,000. Okay, just try to understand. 6,000 shares in subsidiary company, okay, which is the investment of the holding company. So the equity acquired is 6,000. Yeah. So along with equity acquired, they have acquired something else as well. What was that? They have acquired capital profits. Reserve was worth 2,000, profit and loss account worth 1,000. So all these together determine the equity acquired, that is 6,000 share capital plus 2,000 reserves plus 1,000 profit and loss account, all together again 9,000. Okay, and we have to compare it with the cost of investment. Just like before, you get 1500. Here also understand the share or the equity acquired is more than the cost of investment, and that's why it results in a capital reserve and not goodwill. Okay, so we got the capital reserve amount as 1500. Now let's see how do we depict all these in the balance sheet. So we write consolidated balance sheet. First we will talk about the asset side. What did we say yesterday? We have to get the total of the assets of both holding company and subsidiary company. So we write sundry assets, we write H 20,000, S 12,000, total 32,000. Okay, sundry assets, H limited's assets is 20,000, S limited's assets is 12,000, total 32,000 on the asset side. Now the liability side, share capital. I hope you remember yesterday we said while we prepare the consolidated balance sheet, we have to omit two items. One is investment of the holding company in the subsidiary company, and that appears on the asset side of the holding company, and from the liability side also we have to omit one. What was that? Share capital of subsidiary company, which appears on the liability side of the subsidiary company. Okay, so liability side of the subsidiary company, here we have recorded 6,000, but we can't take that while we prepare the consolidated balance sheet. We write only 12,000, which represents what? Which represents the share capital of holding company alone. So remember, while we prepare consolidated balance sheet, take share capital as that of only the holding company and not the subsidiary company. Okay, now the rest is simple. Capital reserve, you have written down only 1500. Where do we get it? It is from the calculation that we get 1500 as capital reserve. Then reserve, P&L account, both reserve and P&L account, just like share capital, we take only that of holding company. Why is it so? Because the subsidiary company's reserves and profit and loss account, we have already adjusted it while calculating capital reserve. Or in other words, we have taken share capital, reserve and P&L account of the subsidiary company here, and that is what is reflected in the capital reserve of the holding company. So as we have written down 1500 here, we don't have to take share capital, reserve and P&L account of subsidiary company, but we have to record share capital, reserve and P&L account of holding company. Okay, and now finally sundry liabilities. So what is sundry liabilities? Very simple. From the balance sheet you get sundry liabilities of holding company as 10,500 and subsidiary company as 3,000. Please look down at your notebook. 10,500 sundry liabilities of holding company and 3,000 sundry liabilities of subsidiary company. Together you get 13,500 as the sundry liabilities of both holding and subsidiary, that is represented in consolidated balance sheet. You get the total on both sides, you get 32,000. Okay, so this is how we prepare a consolidated balance sheet, and earlier we have seen that in order to prepare a consolidated balance sheet, we must get capital reserve or goodwill. So here we have seen just capital reserve, and now we have to see what else? The goodwill as well. I will just explain the goodwill part also. Hope he will have time. So just look at this illustration. So this illustration, it is slightly different. Just like we prepare the capital reserve, I just want to show you how do we get goodwill. Okay, so just imagine how do we get goodwill. What is the probability or possibility of getting goodwill in holding company? When should we be getting the goodwill, or how will we be getting the goodwill? We will get goodwill when the purchase, not the purchase price, here we can say it as the cost of acquisition or the cost of investment of the holding company to acquire the shares in subsidiary company, if that is more than the net assets acquired or the equity acquired, we can say it is a case of goodwill. Okay, so if the cost of investment is more than the equity acquired or net assets acquired, it is a case of goodwill. So look at this diagram. I know very well that the figures are better looking better over here. So sundry assets, we have two amounts, just like it's the very same problem. Okay, isn't it the very same problem? I think so. Yeah, 20,000 and 12,000, the very same assets. Investment 6,000 shares, and the amount here is bit different. What is the amount over there? What is the amount over there? Is it visible to you? Earlier it was 7,500, but here it is 10,000. That means here in this case, in order to acquire 6,000 shares in the subsidiary company, the holding company have paid 10,000 rupees. Naturally, the cost of investment should be more because we are trying to figure out the goodwill. And on this side, there are not much differences. Share capital is 15,000, 6,000. Reserve is 3,000, 2,000. Profit and loss account is 2,000, 1,000. And finally, sundry liabilities is 10,000, 3,000. So the total is, here it is 30,000, here it is 12,000. Okay, so I will repeat again, 15,000, 6,000 share capital. Reserve it is 3,000, 2,000. Profit and loss account it is 2,000, 1,000. And finally sundry liabilities it is 10,000 and 3,000. So the balance sheet total 30,000 and 12,000. And holding company acquired the shares as earlier 31st March 1977. So that means these reserves and profit and loss account of subsidiary company represents capital profits and not revenue profits, because all the profits all the profits were acquired before the date of acquisition. So now let's see how the calculation part differs. Okay, so here we are just making it very simple. The price paid for investment is 10,000. Okay, the price paid for investment is 10,000. We got this from the asset side of holding company. There, in order to acquire 6,000 shares, it is given as the price paid was 10,000. So the equity acquired is 9,000. Where do we get this equity? I have written down that over here. 6,000 is the share capital acquired by holding company. 2,000 is the reserve acquired by holding company. 1,000 is the profit acquired by holding company. So both 2,000 and 1,000 represents capital profit. Along with that 6,000 share in capital, together 9,000 share in equity. So here, as you can notice, price paid for investment or cost of investment is more than the share in equity or the share acquired or the equity acquired. So this 1,000 represents what? Not capital reserve, it represents goodwill. This 1,000 is depicted on the asset side. This 1,000 is depicted on the asset side of the balance sheet. Balance, everything is the same. Sundry assets, we get the total 20 plus 12. Share capital, reserve and profit and loss account, we write only that of holding company. Sundry liability, we get the total of both holding company and subsidiary company. That you get as 13,000. So the total you get as 33,000. Okay. So that's all about how do we compute capital reserve or goodwill and how do we depict that in the consolidated balance sheet. Please have a thorough reading of the same. Write it down as assignment. Both these problems, it's very simple problem. Write down the problem and the solution part of it, and before you come for tomorrow's class, have a reading on this. If it is visible, have a reading on this. Okay, so I hope this was easy for you to understand, or please replay the video so that you can have a thorough understanding and try to figure out and get back to me with doubts. Thank you so much and see you tomorrow. Bye.